All right, Super Savers, I hope you're all well. Today's video is the September update of this Buy iBonds Now or Later video that I did back in July. And in particular, it's for those of you who may be planning on buying or gifting more iBonds before the November iBond rate reset. And for those of you who have not bought any iBonds yet this year. Here's what I'll cover. How much interest you could earn in the first 12 months if you buy in September and October, based on our November iBond rate prediction range. Why someone would choose to buy or gift now versus in October or November. My thoughts on the November fixed rate, as well as 2 important purchasing and gifting tips for the coming weeks, regardless of whether you already own iBonds or not. And definitely do not miss that first purchasing and gifting tip at the end of this video if you're thinking about buying or gifting iBonds in October. It's very, very important. So let's quickly recap our latest November iBond rate prediction range. If at any point you want more details on any of these projections, I've included the link to our most recent November iBond rate prediction video below. Here's the formula used for the November iBond rate prediction. The only things that we're missing now are 1. The September 2022 CPIU number, the September inflation number, which will be released by the Bureau of Labor Statistics on October 13th. And 2. This fixed rate, which will be released by Treasury Direct on November 1st, when the actual November iBond rate is announced. For the purposes of our projections, I've assumed that this fixed rate is 0. More on why later. Depending on whether September CPIU number, the September inflation number, is lower, the same, or higher than August's CPIU number, here's what the predicted semi-annual inflation rate could look like based on the actual end of March CPIU number and the projected end of September CPIU number. And here's what the annualized November iBond rate could look like. This 0.6% CPIU increase here, in particular, assumes that CPIU will grow by 0.6% in September over August, just like it did on average every month between the end of March to the end of August. Now, keep in mind that this predicted annualized November iBond rate here is based on how Treasury Direct calculates the rate by simply multiplying this predicted semi-annual inflation rate here by 2 to get to an annualized rate. What your true annualized iBond rate could be, what you could actually earn in your first 12 months of holding your iBond if you buy or gift in September or October, is actually this number here. For the first 6-month holding period, you get the current annualized iBond rate of 9.62% divided by 2, or 4.81%. We rounded to just 1 decimal place. And for the second 6-month holding period, you'd get this predicted semi-annual inflation rate. And this is what it translates into in terms of interest earned in your first 12 months, assuming you buy $1,000 of iBonds in September or October. It's still, from my perspective, by far the best return one can get right now in the market. 2 things to note about this number here. First, it's slightly higher than the predicted true annualized November iBond rate here in this column. That's primarily due to rounding in Treasury Direct's interest formula, as I explained in this video here. I've linked it below as well. It's a bit of a technical math-heavy video, but a must-watch if you want to know precisely how Treasury Direct calculates iBond interest, when it shows up in your account, and why. But I digress. The second thing to note about these numbers here is that they do not include the early withdrawal penalty of the last 3 months' interest if you redeem within the first 5 years. Do also keep in mind that you need to hold your iBonds for a minimum of 12 months before you can cash out. In case you're new to iBonds, here's our iBond checklist with the most important must-know iBond details, limits, and restrictions. Assuming you've already decided to buy your first iBond or to buy even more iBonds, or to buy some I-bonds as gifts, here's a table. Yes, we love tables. Here's a table that should help guide you on the buy now versus October versus November decision. Buy in September if you want to start earning the current annualized I-bond rate of 9.62% immediately on your excess cash. Because the sooner you buy, the sooner you start earning that I-bond interest. And the sooner you start the clock ticking on the minimum holding period of 12 months. And remember, not only do I-bonds offer one of the best returns in the market currently, if not the best return, they are also, for all intents and purposes, risk-free, as they're backed by the full faith and credit of the US government. Moving on. You should consider buying in September if I-bonds are a part of your long-term strategy to inflation-proof some of your portfolio. The past year or so has shown all of us how important this is as part of a sound financial plan. And those of you in our community who've been buying I-bonds for years know what I mean. Yes, there were periods when the I-bond rates were super low, but in our current times of uncertainty, declining purchasing power, and market volatility, those old I-bonds seem to be treating those of you who own them quite well, based on the comments and emails I've seen. And as I said in my most recent video on our November I-bond rate prediction, who knows, this may be the last time or one of the last times in our lifetime that we'll be seeing I-bond rates at this current level. If, on the other hand, I-bonds are not a part of your long-term strategy to inflation-proof your portfolio, if you're just jumping in because you see that current annualized rate of 9.62%, stay tuned for what I have to say next. So buying in October. Buy in October if you want to know for certain what the November I-bond rate will be. By the time this video comes out, there'll be just about 3 weeks left before the September CPIU number is released on October 13th, meaning that in about 3 weeks' time, we'll know with relative certainty what the November I-bond rate will be. If you've been on the fence for this long about I-bonds, and it'll help you sleep better at night, you might as well wait out those 3 weeks at this point. You should also consider buying in October after the November I-bond rate is for the most part confirmed if you're a short-term investor who's likely to redeem your I-bonds in the first 5 years and pay the early withdrawal penalty of the last 3 months' interest. If this is you, you'll need to factor that early withdrawal penalty into your math and see if your I-bond returns make sense. Now, buy in November. This really is for those of you out there who are betting on a positive non-zero fixed rate that, when combined with the semi-annual inflation rate between the end of March and the end of September, will be higher than the current annualized I-bond rate of 9.62%. No one knows how the fixed rate is determined, except that someone or group of someones at the Treasury Direct makes this decision, and that the fixed rate will be announced on November 1st at the next I-bond rate reset. So if you truly want to see if you'll get a higher fixed rate on your I-bonds, you will have to wait until November 1st, which brings me to... So personally, I don't think we're heading into positive non-zero fixed rate territory with I-bonds this November. Hey, anything can happen, but I-bonds have had a fixed rate of 0 since May 2020. And even more importantly, given the overwhelming demand for I-bonds currently and how backlogged Treasury Direct is with calls, emails, and paperwork, I just don't see a case for them to pump up demand even more by increasing the I-bond fixed rate. This community member emailed us just last week saying that he spent 4 hours on hold the other day, only to have the connection drop. Imagine what the wait time would be like if the fixed rate was pushed up to keep I-bond rates at a steadily high level. So these 2 tips are for those of you planning on buying or gifting more I-bonds before the November I-bond rate reset, and for those of you who have not bought any I-bonds yet this year. Tip 1 is for everyone. Don't miss that one. It's really important. And tip 2 is for those of you who do not have a Treasury Direct account yet. Tip 1, Do not wait until the very last day or days of October to buy your I-bonds. All my Treasury Direct purchases, up until this point at least, have always been processed the next business day, which means if you want to grab the current annualized I-bond rate of 9.62%, you need to, in theory, place your purchase order with Treasury Direct by Friday, October 28th, so that it will be processed by Monday, October 31st. They do not process any orders on weekends. That's in theory. In practice, given how overloaded their systems are, and the stories I've heard about the site freezing, orders getting stuck, lost, and so on, especially when others are also racing to buy I-bonds at the end of the month, I'd suggest placing your purchase order a few days, maybe even a week or so in advance of October 28th to be on the safe side. You don't want to cut things too close, have something go wrong, and miss that last opportunity to grab that 9.62%. Tip 2, for those of you who are completely new to I-bonds, open a Treasury Direct account now if you don't have one already. If you follow my tutorial here on how to open a Treasury Direct account and buy your first I-bond, you'll see that it's relatively easy to do for most people. A small percentage of folks, though, do run into an issue with verifying their identity. Not sure why, but I have gotten quite a few emails and comments about this in the past. In this case, Treasury Direct will ask you to complete and return by mail Form FS5444, which requires a signature guarantee from a financial institution or a notary. And currently, it's taking Treasury Direct 8 weeks to process this form. So the sooner you open your account, the sooner you'll find out if you're one of the lucky ones or one of the unlucky ones. If you're lucky and everything goes smoothly, you're all set and can buy your I-bonds when you're ready. If you're not lucky and have to deal with this form FS5444, your best bet is to try to get it done as quickly as possible and hope for the best. A few folks have told me they've had success in speeding things up when they call, but the wait times when you call can range anywhere between 2 hours and 4 hours. So you'll have to figure out for yourself if it's worth it. And for those of you who've gone through this process, please drop a comment below to let us know how it went. Which bank were you able to get a signature guarantee at? Did you use a notary instead? How long the process took before you could buy your first I-bond? And so on. I'm sure those that have to do this in the future will appreciate learning from your experiences. All right, I-bond fans, I hope this video and our important purchasing and gifting tips have helped guide you in your decision on whether you want to buy I-bonds in September, October, or November. If you enjoyed this video, as always, don't forget the thumbs up and see you again soon with another money-saving, wealth-building video.